That's okay. Hmm? They do. They're all here. Torch on because it's pretty dark here. Right. Okay, are we bewitching hour? Lovely. May I welcome you to Cabinet of Warwickshire County Council. So that's today, the 17th of June. Bit of feedback. And here we are once again in the old Shire Hall, which is a wonderful building, probably not designed for the acoustics that we would want and expect today. So you'll have to bear with us. It's a bit of an echo chamber, but we will aim to try to ensure that it runs as smoothly as possible, but we ensure that social distancing complies. Right, so moving on, we've got a very full agenda today, and may I welcome everybody who is watching online and to those of the public who are with us today. Thank you for joining us. Right, can I check, have we any apologies? I've got none. Nope, no apologies. And declarations of interest, are there any? No, I have none received. Fine, so can I move us then on to the minutes of the meeting, which are printed on pages 5, I will have my torch on in a minute, 5 to 10. So I am going to go through those in the normal manner. So if you could call out if there's any matters arising or any corrections to those minutes. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and that is the end of those minutes. So can I have agreement and approval for the minutes, please? Thank you all. Public speaking, we have got some public speakers today, and may I welcome you. Just for safety's sake, we aren't going to ask you to stand up. If you could speak from your chair, that would be great. And we have 3 minutes public speaking, and the first one I have is Dominic Mond. Please do start.
Okay, it's all good. Hello, I'm Dominic Harrison, one of the co-founders of Warwickshire Climate Alliance and a Warwick resident. I'm ex-National Grid and also a member of Extinction Rebellion. And I would like to briefly speak about item number 9, which is the proposal to join UK 100 Climate Change Network. I'm speaking on behalf of Warwickshire Climate Alliance, which is an umbrella group bringing together a wide range of organisations concerned with climate change, including Clean Air Warwick, Clean Air Leamington, Action 21, Friends of the Earth, Transition Town Rugby, Extinction Rebellion, Low Carbon Warwickshire Network, Cycleways and Stratford Climate Action. I'm encouraged by Warwickshire County Council's wish to join the UK 100 network, as I believe that through working with other local governments, this will increase the opportunities for shared experience, greater support from central government, access to funding, and also understanding some of the pitfalls other councils may be experiencing. Most importantly, it signals real intent that Warwickshire County Council are taking the climate crisis seriously in the run-up to COP26. Since 1992, when the UN published its first report on climate change, and soon after, the first COP meeting took place, And despite all the pledges and declarations that have been made, CO2 levels have continued to increase. If I, again, as we approach the 1.5 degree limit, again, a level we've not seen for millions of years, the consequences to our livelihoods will become increasingly more severe. When looking outside from our narrow perspective, it is tempting to think the changes are minor or overplayed. But if I can refer to a metaphor used by the Irish author in his book, The Age of Unreason, he suggests that a frog, when placed in hot water, will jump out, but when placed in cold water that is slowly heated, will not sense any danger. The suggestion is that the frog will allow itself to be cooked slowly to death, since slow and gradual changes become normalized, and hence any escape is delayed until it is too late. We are now at 1.1 degrees above the long-term average. The CO2 levels now, we haven't seen for over 4 million years. We're into new territory now. We cannot befall the same fate. Also, from a financial perspective, the costs of inaction, as quoted by a number of newspapers at the recent G7 Cornwall Summit, could represent 8 to 9% of GDP each year for the industrialized nations if temperatures are allowed to exceed 1.5 degrees, and each tenth after that makes a significant difference. This is twice the economic loss COVID-19 has brought about every single year. Therefore, Warwickshire Climate Alliance supports this proposal, but I would like to stress the importance of interim and ongoing targets, as it is in order to measure progress, as it is the progress we make between now and 2030 that are by far the most crucial. We would also suggest the appointment of an independent external expert auditor who would quantify and report on real carbon reductions from 2021 onwards, as has been done by Warwick District Council and Stratford District Council in their carbon reduction plans. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, David. Dominic, gosh, I've got a problem with names today. Dominic Harrison, thank you very much for speaking today. And of course, the item is later on in the agenda, and I understand that you have got to leave at some point. But if you miss that one, it will be live streamed and recorded, so you can catch up with the agenda item. Thank you. And our next public speaker is Keith Condacore. Very welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still a Borough Councillor for Weddington, and I have two questions to raise on the agenda items today. On item 6, which is about the recovery, effectively, the graph on the economic outlook, page 5 of 37, clearly shows that Warwickshire has lost around £1.4 billion of economic activity and some 23,000 jobs in 2020. Why does this report, and quite a few others, ignore the consequential loss of population? Many thousands of very mobile overseas nationals and their families have left Coventry and Warwickshire since March 2020. And my second question is on item 8, the Fire and Rescue Service. What is the plan for the fire and service provision in Nuneaton? And is it possible that the plan to relocate one of the two fire appliances in Nuneaton to Bedworth is being approved on the quiet today? I understand we're not going to know what you're approving until we've actually had you vote on this plan. So I'm very concerned and would like the portfolio holder to tell us today what is planned for the Nuneaton fire provision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both public speakers, and for joining us today physically, which is very welcome to be back in person to person. I'm going to move us on then to the first agenda item. Actually, can I just a small bit of housekeeping on this? I'm intending to move item 6 forward. So we will have that after agenda item 4, and item 5 will follow. So effectively, I'm doing a swap of 5 and 6. So we'll go straight from Treasury Management outturn to the RIF, the Warwickshire Recovery and Investment Fund. Is that clear? Okay, good. Thank you. Then I'm going to move us then swiftly on to the very first item on our agenda today, which is the year-end council plan 2020 to 2025 Quarterly Progress Report. And I have great pleasure in welcoming Andy Jens to our Cabinet and to the very first item on the Cabinet and your very first item at all. So, Andy, welcome.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to introduce this report because I think it contains some really positive figures. There are now 48 key business measures available for reporting. Reporting against 8 KPMs has been paused due to the national suspension of inspection regimes, and they're not included in the report. There are 8 proxy measures that have been introduced for education, which you'll see are reported separately in paragraph 2.9 of the report. Before I sort of go into a bit more detail, I'd just like to remind colleagues that detailed year-end performance can be accessed through Power BI, and paragraph 1.3 of the report shows a link to that, and training has been offered to members on the use of Power BI and hopefully taken up. It's pleasing that overall the Council has sustained a robust performance across the board in the face of significant challenges posed by the pandemic. Those challenges including increasing demand, new service delivery to meet the challenges of a pandemic, and significant challenges in how services are delivered. As the Council moves towards something more like business as usual, and as restrictions are loosened, services are redirecting their focus onto the core work, and this is reflected in the KPM performance. Quarter 3 reporting was suspended due to the ongoing pandemic response, but however, at the year end, comparison with Quarter 2 is quite positive. For example, if we take the measures that were on track at the end of Quarter 2, there were 26 amounting to 54%. At year end, that has increased to 29 or 60% of the measures, whereas those not on track in Quarter 2 was 46%, and at year end is down to 40%. There are several of the measures I think are really worth noting and pointing out. One of which is the number of domestic abuse incidents reported as an outturn of 11,402. Now that's 11,402 too many, but it's better by target than 3.25% or 359 incidents. Another one, satisfaction level with the customer contact centre remains above the 85% target. It's actually at 87%. One I think is really impressive is the number of days sick leave per FTE has reduced from 10.99 days in April 2020 to 7.45 in March 2021. And this really is a fantastic achievement, which I believe is down to hard work, not just agile working, which obviously plays a part, but the hard work that's gone into reducing those figures. The employee engagement score has increased from 70% to 76%, which is another great achievement. The rate of total recorded crime per 1,000 population with an outturn of 63.28 is a decrease of 10.91 from the previous year. And the number of people killed or seriously injured on our roads at 211 is a decrease of almost 100. The report does highlight 4 measures which are not on track and which I should mention, and they are the number of children in care, excluding unaccompanied asylum seekers, the times a fire appliance arrives at a life risk or property incidents within the agreed response standards, the cost of send home to school transport provision, and the percentage of Warwickshire residents aged 16 to 64 who are in employment compared with the England average. Predictions of performance for the next reporting period against these measures indicates the position will remain fairly static but could improve slightly. As the organisation continues to transform, the performance framework evolves, providing a sharpened focus on performance and supports delivery of our priorities. The light touch review of the performance framework for 21-22 period has been conducted with strategic and assistant directors, and the recommendation is that the Cabinet approve the new framework, which is attached in Appendix A. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Andy. And just checking who would like to speak on this, and I know, Jerry, you'd like to. If you can just get a microphone to... Thank you.
Thank you. Are we underway, hopefully? As somebody said, it's the exam room, isn't it? I've finished. Can I go? Thank you.
It is.
As the previous portfolio holder for this area will know, it will be a particular question and comment around it. Paragraph 3, the management of HR. I see that, again, our consistent issue with stress and mental health within staff, and I hope that we could bring forward some updated plans in relation to how we're going to deal with this issue, especially in light of COVID and the pandemic situation, because this has been going on for some time, as the previous portfolio myself will know. And I can see a hand's gone up already to update. The other part was on the same page of page 19 in, I think, paragraph 2, and at the end of 2.10, it talks about the comprehensive review of the entire framework. I'm wondering if this would also be a good idea to have discussions with political groups as well within the County Council about that readjustment of the framework. I recognise that this is not the right time to do that, but there will have to be some adjustments as we move forward with the performance framework, and perhaps some discussion with political groups about what they're expecting to see on some of the key performance measures and outcomes as well. Would be useful, so I'm asking for that. The last point really was, I note the comments in the risk register and the improvement to the risk register, and also the usual red ones around DSG and particular items there as well, which we all know is a constant battle to try and get those resources back in to deal with that particular high needs block, and it's only going to get worse, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Cam, you wanted to come in. That's one coming to you.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions, Jerry. Just to come back on the mental health and the stress related to staff, if Andy is happy for me to pick up, and I will, you will know that we've had over the period of 2020-21, 5 staff surveys, all of which were connecting with our staff to see how their well-being has been throughout COVID, and it continues to be so. What we have is 20 mental health champions within the organisation who staff can go and meet and speak to, and we've also still got obviously the hotline, and we've also got a site where staff can look for information and be guided if they need that resource and support. So that is all still available. I'll hand over to Andy Jens, to Councillor Jens, to pick up on the other points.
So just picking up on your point about the, where did I write it down? The performance framework. Jerry, I'm quite happy that, clearly the performance framework is there for all councillors, and it's absolutely right that the information that we should be providing is relevant to what we do in our job. So I'm quite happy that that is picked up, and I'm sure Andy will pick that up and work with group leaders on that one. Andy, back to you.
Thank you, Lisa. If I could just pick up on the point about the new performance framework. I can confirm that officers are working on that now following a pause that was agreed in January. A Cabinet member involvement in the new framework does remain a key element, and a plan of activity is being worked on at the moment, and it certainly will involve working with members and talking to members. So that work is going ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that. No more speakers. Can I take you then to, I've lost the front page of this, back to the front page and to, if I can get back to the front page. Here we are. Back to page 11 on your agenda pack, and you've got the recommendations as printed, A and B. This is to consider and comment on the progress and to approve the 2021 performance framework. Can we have agreement? Agreed. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. So the first of many papers to be presented by Peter Butlin. I think it's your show today. Can I ask you to present item 3, which is the financial outturn report, please, Peter? In a second.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The final outturn report for 2020-21 is a story about COVID. As I said in the budget, we live in uncertain times, and normal financial outturns are a little bit different to normal. The COVID-19 has had a massive impact with the uncertainty of lockdowns, reduced demand for some services, while others have experienced unprecedented decrease in demand, significant loss of income, and services being cautious in their normal spending patterns due to the uncertainty. And it was an instruction from us to basically be cautious because we did not know how the government was going to compensate us for what was happening. The significant addition funding from central government in recognition of the pressures we face has been greatly appreciated, but the last-minute announcement of some funding and the fact that we have had 28 different grant allocations, some general and some very specific, on short time scales to spend them with the last financial year have all contributed to the outturn position. The shifts in Q3 to Q4 forecasts were also heavily impacted by the late announcement of the after Christmas of the latest lockdown, given this materially changing the spending and income patterns for a lot of the services. So consequently, we have an underspend, a headline underspend of 38.84 million. Now, in normal circumstances, we would frown upon an underspend of this scale. Anybody that's new to kind of local government, and there's a few kind of new councillors here, an underspend is almost as frowned upon as an overspend. We like to be within our budgets. But I'm not going to apologise for today's underspend because the situation that arisen, we've got to this point, has indicated that our services and our financial services have performed remarkably well to the point that the delivery of the services are being earmarked and recommended for a recommendation in terms of what we've achieved here in the council. So if you take out and strip out the COVID-related budgetary pressures and extra funding that's come from government, the underlying trend underspend is 5.87 million. And if you kind of relate that back to our services as a whole, that is less than 2%, which is a variance which we allow and consider that's a good performance. So how have we got here? And we kind of take into account we've got 16.17 million of headline variance relates to the government COVID funding received, which will be carried forward to 21-22, of which 10.96 million was already committed through decisions made in 2021. A lot of the budgeting stuff, budgeting of COVID expenditure, because of our inability or the lack of capacity to deliver on some of these funding, which came through very, very late, especially on the third lockdown, has meant that we basically carry forward a lot of that expenditure. But I must point out, 51.02 million of government grant fund COVID pressures was still managed to be spent in the time allocated. 6.22 million relates to carry forward requests from services set out in Appendix D and carry forward. Corporate Board have recommended the Cabinet to consider supporting the full list of carry forwards. The remaining thing is it also disguises some of the overspends, and we still kind of got problems with SEND. SEND, which was there before COVID and is still there now as an underlying expenditure, and it had been exacerbated to some extent by the COVID crisis, in as much that kind of child placements of costs have gone through the roof. So that has directly knocked the direct schools grant. Also, the adult social services as an underspend has come about because a lot of people are not placing back into the care homes. So for obvious reasons, they don't want to take the risk. Also, a lot of people were not taking those social services because they wanted to isolate and felt that they need to kind of protect themselves. Also has had an impact on our services. The other one that has had a significant impact on adult social services is that we allocated a considerable amount for new hospital discharges being funded, which is now being kind of funded through the COVID hospital discharge grant, which has kind of contributed 7.09 million, which would have been kind of picked up by ourselves, but is now being picked up by the government. In terms of capital, we are in a similar situation where COVID has had an impact upon the delivery of some of our capital projects. For obvious reasons, people were stopped from working, social distances had a kind of an impact on some of our contractors, and also shortage of materials. So there is a kind of a reprofiling and a slippage of many of these contracts to take into account the problems that have been created by the COVID crisis. All this taken into account, we are quite confident that we can reprofile this and deliver in the long term. The other aspect of this one is we've got to take into account we do not know what significance the COVID crisis is going to have on further services. One instance is also mental health, and we do not know where that's going to end. So we need a little bit of money left over from the COVID money to kind of relate back to these continuing kind of demands on the COVID recovery. All in all, I think normally I would say we've got to go back and do better. But in this case, I think we've done better. Our services have performed remarkably well, and we've been agile in the way in which we use the money, and we haven't squandered any. We've also got to take into account adult social services. Once people come back into the system, may well be a bigger draw on our crisis because they've kept out of the system and out of our care. So they may be more acute when they do come back into the system. So we might have to kind of throw more money at that aspect of it. So we are mindful of these impacts upon our services and also the finances that we need to kind of allocate for it. And on that basis, I'm willing to take questions.
Thank you, Peter, very much. I'm going to go first to Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Peter. It's more of a general comment question, really, and it may be more towards the leader than to you. And it's to do with seeking assurances, really, around all the COVID grants and all the COVID money that's been coming into the local authority. Because it is concerning that you're now hearing increasingly from government ministers and elsewhere when businesses are calling for money and people are calling for support. Actually, they're saying the money's locked up in local authorities and there's X amount of millions which has been handed out and they're not spending it quick enough. And therefore, it's the local government's fault. It's the classic local government bash over the head, the same as reserves. But I think that is increasingly worrying if that's going to be the rhetoric that the government is going to be giving to local government that we're holding on to all this cash to do with COVID grants, and we're not supporting businesses when we should be doing that, or supporting individuals. So what I'm trying to seek this afternoon is clear assurances that Warwickshire County Council is not doing that, and from my understanding it's not doing that. As to the other points about mental health, adult social care and all the particular elements there, I think there's an emerging picture which we will see over the next months as we head towards Christmas, which will put increasing pressures on. So I await with bated breath the government's adult social care responses and the funding and the releasing of resources, so actually we can tackle that problem once and for all, as the Prime Minister stated he would do.
Jerry, thank you very much. And yes, I hope you won't have to hold your breath too long. Oh, but we've been there before. Just the point about business grants, I think it is worth noting that over a year ago now, when this awful pandemic first kicked off and we went into lockdown, and we were very aware immediately of the impact that was likely to have on our business sector, and for the concerns that would be about how long, what sort of support they would need. We were very quick to come out of the blocks then, even before we knew really how much money was available and would be coming from government. And the reality is that the statements take a little while to follow into a cash in bank. But we had that cash in bank and were prepared to make that available then and there, and volunteered that to our districts and borough councils, who were the distributing authorities. So at that very point, we have been very business aware and trying to do our level best to support businesses throughout the pandemic, and are still. And Peter has got a paper shortly, which is our next steps on recovery. But that's, in a way, a quick response to that exact question to me. And I'm sure, Peter, you will be able to pick up elements of what part of the grants we have or have not got out. No, that's it.
In direct response to that, look, I think Izzy has more or less kind of answered the question. Through the business grants, we was basically one of the kind of fastest authorities in conjunction with the districts and boroughs in terms of distributing money to those businesses that needed it. If you look at the performance of some of our neighbours in terms of distribution, to especially Birmingham, we was particularly good. So there is no money that should have been allocated. It's been done. We're mindful of the fact that we need to support our businesses going forward, and that will be reflected in the papers that follow today. But I also, I think you're quite right. We shouldn't be hoarding money if someone is in need of it.
There's no more questions, so looking at page 35, we've got a set of recommendations there. The first three are to note. We have got to approve on recommendation D and on recommendation E. We've got to approve both those points, one which is the 6.221 to carry forward, and the reproofing, as Peter identified, and then finally to note the reserve positions. Can we agree the recommendations as printed? Agreed. That's unanimous. I do need to say this for the benefit of those who are watching streaming who can't see the hands raised. Thank you. So next item is Peter again, and it's the Treasury Management Outturn report. This is on page 71.
Thank you, Chair. As with the main council outturn report, our Treasury management activities have also been impacted by the COVID pandemic. In other words, we've basically had to be more agile, and also the ability to kind of access money quickly. As anybody knows, when they invest their cash at home, if you lock your money away further, it becomes less activity. So we have to, as a result of that, because we needed to kind of access our money quickly, the interest rates dropped, and also in general, interest rates have dropped across the country. Last year we had a return of 0.99% and our performance still exceeded the benchmark. This year we've budgeted for a return of 0.41% on our investments, and we've exceeded that, and we've kind of turned out at 0.52% return on our investments. Our finance people have been rather agile in moving our money about to avoid what we call negative interest rates. In other words, we have to pay other people to look after our money. So we've still got an active return on our cash reserves. I commend them for their efforts in doing that, and we performed relatively well, and also kept our finances in good fettle to deal with the crisis as we have at the moment. Our balances have increased by 38.4 million to 395.62 million by the end of March 2021. The main movement in Treasury investments during the year was the additional allocation of 2.5 million loan to the Coventry and Warwickshire Reinvestment Trust for the provision of COVID business interruption loans. In terms of borrowing, 20 million was repaid and no new borrowing was taken out during 2021. Our net borrowing for the end of the year was 321 million, which still places us at the lower end of the County Council's overall external borrowing requirements. This Treasury management outturn position continues to support the fact that we have a strong and well-managed balance sheet, and that continues to support our ambitions linked to the WPDG and RIF, which I will talk about later today. Any questions, please?
Any questions? I don't think so, but you might like to expand on the acronyms.
One refers to the property company,
Yep,
Warwickshire
lovely.
Development Property Group, as we call it now. It used to be the company, but someone else had got the acronym, so we call it the group now.
Right.
And the other one, RIF, which is the Warwickshire Recovery Investment Fund.
Of which we will hear more in a minute.
Which is I've got high hopes for.
Great. So I don't know if there's any questions, but I see none. So we can move to the recommendations, Peter. Which is just actually to comment. So
It's to note.
thank you very much. And we will move then on to, I don't think we actually, we do have to take a vote on it, even though it is to comment. So, right, can we agree the recommendation?
Agreed.
Agreed, and that's unanimous. Thank you. We will then move on. As I did say earlier, I'm moving forward the RIF, the Warwickshire Recovery Investment Fund now. So we'll move on to that, which is down as item 6 on page 175. Peter, to you.
Me again, I'm sorry to
I
hog the limelight
think
here.
it's all going to be you, virtually.
The Warwickshire Recovery Investment Fund is the next stage in basically kind of taking this authority to make sure that the recovery for Warwickshire and Warwickshire businesses and people and job opportunities is as good as it can be. And what we intend to do is, by the Warwickshire Recovery Investment Fund, is a form of a bank, a loan system to new businesses, existing businesses, so as we can sustain or make flourish those new businesses in Warwickshire. Also, it kind of creates a situation where we are a preferred place to do business compared with anybody else in the country. The principles of this was already agreed in terms of taking this forward. What we have before us now is the ground rules, which is the governance, which you will find on a chart there, which charts where all the governance lies, where members oversight, and also the loans board itself. That's all in details there and has to be. And then the second part of this is the lending strategy in terms of who we lend to, on what grounds, and the risks we are willing to take. It's a substantial document, and it has to be. This is £140 million worth of taxpayers' money, and we have a duty to look after it with due care. We are basically kind of being less risk averse as we have in the past, but I think it's well looked after, and all the strategies put in place will make sure that we are doing a good job in kind of preserving the economy of Warwickshire. You will see also that there's three elements to these drugs. There's two less risky, highly secure, well-secured loans, and then there's a small one in the middle of 10 million, which is kind of a more risky nature, and that's the reason why it's a small £10 million loan system. But it's kind of designed for those non-secured and new startups, etc. So the other two, in effect, underwrite the riskier element in that smaller pot of money. But if you look through all the risk strategies, we are quite confident that we will be able to wipe our face, if not make some money, over the 5-year period. The 5-year period is what this is for, because it's this about recovery. We do not expect to be loaning money above and beyond the 5 years as implemented in this policy. A lot of people are looking at us and what we're doing here, and we're being envied by one or two people across the different counties, and also the LEP are very, very glad that we are doing this. So I'm willing to take questions on this on that basis.
And if I can remind you that we had a couple of questions earlier, which you might address in the wrap-up as well.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. Can I... Jerry, yes, please, Jerry.
Thank you. Sorry, it doesn't work with the echoing, does it really? But still, on page 248 and earlier on in the report, it looks at the governance and the oversight member arrangements. And as the portfolio holder will remember our discussions about training and advice and SIBFA and the rest of it, all I'm asking for really is a sentence to be in these documents that refers that the elected members will receive that training, because it doesn't refer to it, and it was assured as we've been going through this process that we would have something like that. It just for me, it gives me assurance really around the processes, because the way of handling these sort of funds and the way the company works is very, very different to local government finance. This is a commercial entity, and it will be coming through in different ways, and we will have to make different judgments, and the balance sheet looks different to how we would look at it in local government in normal terms. So that's the only assurance I'm saying. It's really nice to finally see the flesh on the bones of where, if you like, the charts are, and actually starting to see that. Thank you.
Any other questions at all? I don't see any, but I do just want to make a bit of a comment myself. This paper will go to full council on 1st of July, so all members will be able to have a really good look at it. I think it's important to note that, Jerry, this addresses exactly the issue that you brought up earlier, which is the recovery, which is how business support has to be agile and has to be ready to help our businesses to get the best advantage that they can as we move out of the pandemic, although I suspect we'll always have to live with an element of this pandemic, but we need to make sure that the way we respond and deal with our businesses looks different in the future to help them to be as relevant and quickly reactive as they can be to the pressures of issues like this. I do want to thank the work that's gone in from the officers, because this has been a huge piece of work in the making. It is an ambition that we as the administration have had for some while now, and I'm particularly pleased to see it coming to fruition. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for Warwickshire businesses. With the support of the LEP, the Chamber of Commerce, the Federation of Small Business, I really believe this is going to help us to move out of what's been a dark time, I think it's fair to say, for business. So well done in getting this to Cabinet as quickly as we could after the election. Nothing happens terribly quickly in the world of local government, and this is as quick as we could do. And Peter, thank you for bringing this very important paper to us today. back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Jerry, you're absolutely right, and we did agree, and I do believe actually there is a mention of training in there, but if I think it was on page 24? No, 187. 187. There is reference to training. And you're absolutely right, we did agree this at the time when we were doing through the seminars, and
Peter, talk to the mic.
yeah, we will make sure that those who sit on that panel are well versed with financial processes. Coming back to the original question from Keith Carnicore, I'd looked at this question with a great deal of amusement at the time, because I couldn't see how this related to the paper before us in terms of the population, whether it's gone up or down in Warwickshire. I can only assume that he thinks that any reduction in population means there's going to be less businesses, but it could be far from the truth, and we want to attract people into Warwickshire with businesses. The other aspect of it is that, well, like I say, I struggle to kind of see the connection between what we're trying to do here. I know he kind of has a little bit of an obsession with population in Warwickshire and whether it goes up or down. But my first observation is if the population was decreasing that much, why are property prices going up so fast? So on that respect, but in terms of where we are with the RIF, this is about kind of attracting business and preserving those businesses that are struggling, who have had their bank balances depleted and reserves depleted as a result of COVID, and nothing that they've done to themselves. Also, I must point out that it is estimated this will create about 2,200 jobs in Warwickshire and preserve a further 4,000 in existing kind of businesses that are struggling. So, all in all, if that works out as well as that, I'll be more than happy. And to be perfectly honest, if I get 10 new jobs out of it, it's still worthwhile to me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I should have also said this has been to scrutiny. Thank you. It has been to scrutiny. I think it's one of our papers that has had more profile out to members than many. So I'm going to just move us then on to the agenda recommendations on page 175. They do go over the page, so I'm definitely not reading those out, but they will go to full council as well. So can we agree the recommendations as set out? Just one moment. This doesn't go to council, the treasury management strategy and the capital. Sorry, I have misrepresented that it does not go to full council, but I think for all of that we need to make absolutely sure that all of our members, and we know that they have had that because it's been well through scrutiny and in the developing stages. So I'm incorrect in that, but we will just go to the vote again, if I may, please. Can we agree the recommendations as set out in page 175 and 176?
Agreed.
That is unanimous, and I have to say that launches our RIF, which is a super exciting moment for me, I think, and certainly for everyone else. Thank you. Right, going backwards to go forwards, we are now on to agenda item 5, which is on page 95, and this is the Treasury Management Strategy and the Investment Strategy. So, and this is going to full council, I am confidently assured. Thank you. Page 95 of your papers. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Now, this is a direct result of the decision that we've just made with the RIF. The consequence of the RIF is that we will be increasing our borrowing as a result of that. As I pointed out in the previous paper, our borrowing at the moment is about 321.4 million. As a result of the RIF decision, we will have to kind of review and alter our treasury management strategy and investment strategy to accommodate the RIF in these new policies. And as a result, our borrowing as a result of this will go up to 451.4 million by the end of 25-26. This looks an awful lot of money, But if you can take into account and compare this with us, other authorities, we are still in the middle of the borrowing quartile compared with any other council. So borrowing is very manageable and not excessive compared to other authorities. Yet we are still managing to do what we have been doing in terms of getting kind of Warwickshire people back into work and encouraging business in Warwickshire. And let's face it, that has got to be a good outcome for this authority. So on the basis of that, I'm willing to ask questions.
Thank you, Peter. So, any questions? I see no hands. So, I'm going back to you.
Thank you, Chair, and I recommend this new strategy to the authority for approval.
Can we agree that this is on page 95? Yep.
Agreed.
I think we have full agreement. That's unanimous. Thank you all. Right. The next item is 7, which is the revenue investment funds, to be found on page 339. This is the 21-22 May report. And Peter, it's you.
Like I say, I'm hogging the limelight today.
Definitely.
There is only one scheme to consider this month. Just as a reminder, it's a new kind of period for this authority. The Revenue Investment Fund is a £20 million fund that we put for basic kind of rat-round kind of recovery of the COVID for various schemes under three different tranches of money. This one comes under the zero carbon, or the climate change fund as we call it, and it's an application for £253,000 for a solar panel scheme on the Elliott Park Innovation Centre. £140,000 of that funding will come direct from public sector decarbonisation scheme, and the remainder will be funded by this, if approved, for £113,000. The scheme will offset 39 tonnes of CO2, generate 154 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, and bring in an estimated 20,700 extra revenue income per annum. This is a good use of our roof space on a building that we own, and bearing in mind that someone else is paying a large chunk of the money, which always kind of sits friendly and sits well with me, I'm kind of willing to take questions.
Excellent. So, Heather. Yep, this one? Just.
I just wanted to congratulate our officers on applying for the grant and getting us funded from this national fund. I think they've done an excellent job, and keep going, folks, because we need more of it.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. We're very pleased to have someone else's money and spend it. I haven't, Peter. I'm looking. I've got no one else. So back to you for the recommendations.
Thank you, and I recommend as per recommendations, and I seek your support.
Those in favour, please now show.
Agreed.
Yes, that is agreed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8. You can have a rest, Peter. We can hand the microphone over to Andy Crump for the Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service Integrated Risk Management Plan. This is the action plan. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. This is where I say if this report is well received, it's from Councillor Crump. If it isn't, it's another one of Peter Butland's reports. So. Keeping this very brief, this is the annual draft action plan that we have to produce each year, as it says on the tin. Back in March 21, we produced the Integrated Risk Management Plan 2020 to 2025, which went through substantial public consultation, considered by the Cabinet and Resources OSC, and was approved by the Council on the 16th of March. Really, this is a very self-explanatory report. The appendix details the action plan, but in summary, we've got 5 key proposals which are on page 344. Again, ensuring our workforce and ethos reflects the diverse communities we serve. Assess our capabilities to improve our ways of working in response to any future pandemics. Assess our overall resource capacity to ensure our personnel and physical assets are in the right place and at the right time to deliver our strategy duties. And again, there's a question which I will answer afterwards on that. Proposal 4, develop further opportunities to support the wider community health outcomes and help to protect social care in the NHS. And finally, implement digital solutions to enhance our service delivery. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory and very sensible priority options, in my opinion. And I will seek any questions, please.
Okay, so thank you, Andy. So I think we've now just set up a member group to go through the action plan, and thank you for those who have stepped forward on that. Are there any questions to Andy? I don't see any, but obviously you had one earlier, so I'll go back to you for that.
Brilliant. I will just make sure I've got all the right information in front of me.
I have it, if you don't.
Yeah, I've got it here. It's my Surface Pro was playing up, but I've got it here as well. Basically, this question has been asked before in a similar guise by Councillor Condacor when he was a county councillor, obviously still a district, a borough councillor. Really, we're looking to make sure we've got our resources in the right place at the right time to meet our statutory requirements. And as we touched upon in Councillor Jen's report, we didn't always necessarily meet our targets in attending fire as critical incidents. And we always know that will always be the case because of our rural location. And I think it was 136 incidents out of 3,473, which is roughly 3.9%. Really, we've done a lot of work and evidence on that, and our professional officers feel that the locations of our stations need to be reviewed. Because of the availability of the on-call officers at Bedworth, our weekend and evenings cover is excellent, but during the day we do have some problems maintaining sufficient cover in the Bedworth and the M6 area. And this is where the pump will still be moved to, but still maintaining our obligations and service targets in the Nuneaton area. We've got aspirations to make Nuneaton Fire Station a community hub, community station, and any consultation about this will involve all stakeholders and partners. So this is not a done deal. This is proposals to make sure we're as efficient and effective as possible, enable Warwickshire Fire and Rescue to respond to the differing and changing nature of the incidents that we've experienced over the last few years. Invariably, it used to be the vast majority of our incidents were fires, but now due to various changes in building control, fire safety, smoke alarms, great work by fire prevention and fire protection teams, we now have a significant amount of road traffic incidents, and getting to the motorways can be challenges at times from certain locations. So we are looking to make sure we meet our residents' needs and make sure in the RMP, I think it's item number 4, that our personnel and appliances and assets are in the right place.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. So I think if we can move to the recommendations which we have on page 343, they are as printed. Oh, actually, there's just the one recommendation, which is that we approve the Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service Integrated Risk Management Plan Action Plan. Can we agree that? That's unanimous again. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just checking I haven't turned over too many pages. No. So next, item 9 is on page 357, and this is the UK 100 Climate Change Network. Heather, can I ask you to introduce it, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to be introducing this report. I think it's an exciting prospect for the Council to be joining the UK 100, which is a nationwide network which will enable us to access climate research, campaigns, publications, and innovative funding solutions and private sector expertise. We have already in place in Warwickshire significant partnership working with our districts and boroughs and with our own cross-party group within the council. This takes us out into the wide world. Climate change cannot be done in isolation. The planes take up our airspace. There are no boundaries for the lorries. There are no boundaries for the trains that pass through our county. So we really need to work with partners right across the region and right across the nation to make sure that we are providing that local leadership on climate change. There is one person, the public speaker talked about interim targets. We're going to take the targets that we have and integrate it with the UK 100 targets, and then we will take that to our own group and have it costed and look at it very carefully before we commit ourselves to targets beyond what we have already committed to, which is the net zero by 2030. We need to cost this and do it properly and have the research in place. It is always ratepayers' money that we need to think about as well. Let me just say one other thing. The public speaker talked about the independent audit. We have in place an ISO system which is independently examined, and we have had that in place for very many years, one of the first councils to do that. So I have every confidence in the figures that we produce as a council, and our residents should have that confidence as well. So I would really like to propose this, and I hope that you will all agree that this will be a further commitment for our clear action on climate change and our demonstration of the leadership for all other organisations in the county to follow and act upon. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Judy and then Jerry.
Thank you very much. I really welcome the opportunity to join this 100 pledge. I just hope it becomes an action group and not a talking shop. So, yes, welcome it, but please bring back actions rather than just words. Thank you.
Jerry. Just on its way.
Thank you. Yep, I welcome the fact that the County Council's joined this. As the leader and I will know, we saw a presentation some months ago now about UK 100, and we both said at that meeting then, this is something Warwickshire should get involved in. And so it's good to see this report come through and that we can take this forward. So let's hope we can all get behind it.
I think, Judy, the likelihood of it being a talking shop, it's already been in operation. It is a countrywide group of councils, so I don't think it's quite the same thing that perhaps it might have been in the past. So, and I think there's an impetus at the moment, which is undoubtedly driven by COP26 in Glasgow in November. I think that, you know, we've already seen in the last 10 days the G7, which has been very focused on this, and there is an agenda that the government is driving on it. So I think, you know, we are joining that group because I think it adds value to what we're doing, and as Heather has quite rightly said, you know, it gives us the advantage of being able to share the experiences that are going on elsewhere or that we're ahead on. So it might be that we can show them a thing or two, or they can show us. And, you know, I'm very supportive, Heather.
Yes.
Back to you.
Yes, I would say we've already got a climate change programme in place. We've had the Green Shoots, a community fund of £1 million out there to reduce carbon within our community schemes. We've got Switch and Save, we've got the Solar Together, We've got installing electric charging points across our county. We've got safe and active travel schemes for schools to promote cycling and walking. And we are also looking at activity within our waste, our flood prevention, transport policy, planning department. So right across this council, climate change is a challenge, and we will continue to try to meet that challenge.
Yeah. Wonderful, thank you. And I'm going back to the page that this is on. The recommendations are on 357, that we agree that we join the UK 100 and that we adopt and merge the targets. So can we agree that agenda item, please? Those in favour? Yep, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, that is the last of our public papers. Is it not? Oh, gosh. Oh, dear. I've turned over the page. Oh, here it is. He thought he was going to be forgotten. So, Jeff Morgan, if you could take the next item and introduce item number 10, which is the change of age range for Exhall Cedars Infant School, please.
Thank you. On behalf of Exhall Cedars Infant School, I speak. This is a simple technical change to regulations under which children under 5 will be looked after at Exhall Infant School. Currently, the age range is 3 to 7, which means that children between those ages are looked after under DFE, local authority regulations. Changing it to 4 to 7 means that the same children, and possibly some additional ones as well, will be looked after under what's called the community facility powers, and that gives a school more flexibility over staffing and when to offer sessions. Because critically at the moment, traditionally nursery schooling has been 3 hours in the morning or 3 hours in the afternoon. That doesn't always suit parents now, more of whom are working, and it allows the schools to set up sessions that are more convenient for the parents and more convenient for the schools. There has been a consultation on this. The school has asked for this. There's been a consultation. There were no responses to the consultation, so I take silence as assent. And that's really about it. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
So, has anyone got any questions? I think that was very clear. Does make sense. So, back to you.
No, thank you very much. Well, on page 365, the recommendation says that we approve the change of the age range from 3 to 7 to 4 to 7, and I would hope to have your support, colleagues.
And can we show our approval, please? That is unanimous. Yes, you can. So that can happen, which is good news. Now, back to where I was, which is that was the last item in the public arena. So if we can go through to the exclusion of the press and public, and I'm obliged to just read out that members of the public be excluded from the meeting for the items mentioned below on the grounds that their presence would involve the discussions of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Can we agree that, please? Thank you.